This next clip is the clip that I think is the most interesting out of everything last night, because she said something that I wasn't even aware of. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot she could say that I'm not aware of, but I was not aware, and I think most people were not aware of the extent of America. Let's call it America's empire, right? Let's let her describe it. Here you go, Dr. Stein.
We now have somewhere between 700 or 800 or even more military bases around the world. Do you know how many military bases all other countries combined have? About 30. There's something really wrong with this picture. Do you know? Do you know how much of our budget actually goes to maintaining this bloated and dangerous military budget? 54% of our discretionary budget, which is about half of your income tax, is going to this failed, catastrophic policy of regime change.
But I'm just trying.
Okay, so I think she misspoke at the end. It's not that money's not going to regime change, which is in most instances a failed policy. It's going to our empire abroad, projecting our global hegemony, right? Our hegemony, depending on potato, who you speak to. It's going to power projection and to make sure that we have a presence in different regions that our Defense Department and our leaders think we should have a presence in. So not so much to regime change, but it was just, that's kind of a minute point. The bigger point is she's dead ass right about us having 800 bases abroad. And I had a graphic on your screen, and I'm going to bring it back up on your screen. This is from Politico, who actually reported on this last year. And if you go to the article in Politico, they confirmed there's 800 bases. A great majority are in Europe, a large concentration in Italy, and there's a great number of bases in Japan and the South China Sea region. And then you see there are bases that are scattered through Africa. We have 800 bases abroad compared to 30 bases from every other nation state. That, my friends, what we're looking at here is global hegemony. Depending on who you talk to, it's empire. Now, Cuomo asked the question that I think is the real question at hand. Are they going to close it? Are they going to close all of them? And I guess this is where my, contrarian attitude comes in with the Green Party, because they're speaking my language. But if they got in power, what are they going to actually do to affect those things that they're speaking my language on? So I see this graphic and it does look like empire. And part of me is like, I understand this power projection. I look at it, I see it. It makes sense to me because of just my background, what I've studied and international relations. I'm a realist, and that realism comes into great tension with my idealism, right? So I'm always at war within myself about war and peace, right? That's just my personal struggle. So when I see this graphic that's on my screen behind me, I'm like, it makes sense. And then in the same breath, I'm like, why are we building such a vast empire across the entire globe that is not only detrimental to some of the regions that they're actually located, but it's also detrimental to our domestic policy, and in that it absorbs, I believe she said, 54% of our discretionary budget. Or was it 16% of our discretionary budget, 54% of our discretionary budget. So it absorbs a huge amount of our resources to maintain this empire abroad. But still, Cuomo had the right question. Are we going to shut it down, or are we pointing it out for the purposes that it really speaks to people like you and me? And that's where guys, that's where I am right now. I'm sorry. I know it is, I know people would want me to kind of just speak positively of the Green Party, but I have to just call it the way I see it. What are they going to actually do to accomplish these things? Mainly because, not just because I don't think that they have the plans, because they probably do have some plans, but the real question is politically, how would they accomplish it in the environment that we currently have that is designed and built to support this empire abroad, politically and economically? There are people who have their political futures determined by sustaining these bases abroad. And then there are people who have their entire economic framework. Every penny they make is dependent on military spending. So when you have that, I mean, the long and short of it is the military industrial complex, right, that Eisenhower spoke about. So when you have that has been entrenched in the American system for so long, you know, we can debate about whether or not there should be such an empire or not. Let's, you know, we can have that fun debate, right? It's a great debate to have. I think it's a meaningful debate to have. But the bottom line is, if we're talking about getting rid of it, I don't know. What do you think? Do you think, let me ask it as a question, right? Before you guys, you know, all come after me. Do you think that anybody, I don't care who, Stein, Sanders, anybody could actually undo the last, I mean, how many decades of this militarism? Considering it takes a lot more than just your good intentions to undo generations of calculation and wealth generation, right? They've been planning and building this and generating wealth off of this for generations. And we think we can change it with our good intentions and the fact that we want to change it. Because here's the last thing I'll say about it. And this is why I feel I'm still voting for them. I'm going to support them. I think they did a brilliant job last night. But the reality of it is that unless you address the structural problems, not just the structural problems in America, but the global structural problems, the reasons on top of, right? So on top of the financial gains and the military industrial complex, there are some structural forces that dictates that we have to have a global presence. Now, do we need the global presence to the extent that we have it? That's the argument to have. But anyone who says that we do not need a global presence, just in the regions that are the most troubled, in the regions that are trouble in the future, in the regions that are destabilized, anyone who's going to say that we should have any presence there really is not ready to address the global structural problems that we have. And I know a lot of people in my audience in particular are going to say, yeah, but a lot of those structural problems were caused by America. That's not true. The structural problems speak to the condition that causes the instability in the first place, right? If you want to talk about America's responsibility for specific destabilized regions and specific conflicts, absolutely. If you want to talk about our military industrial complex, the fact that we have an economic investment in these, in making weapons and building bases and maintaining those bases, absolutely. But are you going to address the fact that if we withdrew completely, another global hegemon would fill the void? And if another global hegemon fills the void, then it may very well require for us to go right back to where we came from. So to simply say we want to end the American empire or contract the American empire, like, one, politically, how are you going to get it done? But then two, if you actually did it, are you prepared for the global? Are you prepared for how the cards will fall? Because how the cards may fall may actually be an existential threat to our security. And in a lot of our conversations on the progressive left, I don't really hear people addressing that fundamental underlying problem. Do we need the 800 bases? Probably not. But are we going to get rid of all of them? You would be insane to do so. But we never really have the question of where is the proper balance for us to not be engaged in empire building, but for also for us not to be negligent in our best interest and for the interest of some of the regions, right? So that's a big one that I unpacked, but I just thought it was fascinating that she brought that up out of all of the debates, all the town halls, all the conversations. I mean, no one has brought up just how vast our global reach has become and how expensive that global reach has become. The next question is, what is the proper balance? And if it is a massive contraction of our global presence, how are you going to get it done politically? Once I hear people talk about that, then I'm going to start wearing people's T-shirts and cheering for them.